In the United States, the mayor of Los Angeles, Karen Bass, announced a partial curfew to go into effect for part of the city's downtown after several nights of violence. The United States and China have agreed on a framework to implement their trade truce and remove China's export restrictions on rare earths. And demonstrations were held throughout Argentina following the political proscription of former President Cristina Fernandez. Hello, welcome from the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Stay with us. The mayor of Los Angeles, Karen Bass, announced Tuesday a limited curfew to go into effect for part of the city's downtown after several nights of violence. According to the city official, the curfew will be in effect from 8 p.m. Tuesday to 6 a.m. Wednesday and may continue for several days. The curfew does not apply to residents and people who work in the area. The order comes after a weekend of protests that turned violent in downtown LA area. On Monday, largely peaceful protests during the day were followed by a night of looting and vandalism. Bass said a curfew had been considered for several days but was deemed necessary after 23 businesses were looted or vandalized on the night.
Must abide by this curfew.
The curfew is necessary.
And on Tuesday, the United States and China have agreed on a framework to implement their trade truce and remove China's export restrictions on rare earths. U.S. and Chinese negotiators agreed in principle to a framework on how to implement the consensus reached by the previous round of talks in Geneva last month and a phone call between the two countries' leaders last week. Officials on both sides will now take the proposal back to their leaders for approval, while neither side disclosed any specifics of the deal. U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick indicated that both had agreed to roll back export controls on goods and technologies that are crucial to the other.
Two sides had agreed in principle on a framework for implementing the consensus reached on the phone call on June 5th and at the talks on Geneva. We hope that progress made at the London meeting will be conducive to strengthening trust between China and the United States.
Well, we know that they're motivated. Our president is motivated. We're moving as quickly as we can, so we would very much like to find an agreement that makes sense for both countries. The relationship is complex. There are challenges that can't be eliminated in a couple of months, of course, but there are things we potentially could do. So, I just think we feel positive about engaging with the Chinese, understanding the real challenges we've had for many years, and some will endure.
And Iran's foreign ministry announced that the next round of nuclear talks with the United States is scheduled for Sunday. U.S. President Donald Trump has said that the dialogue would take place on Thursday, but Iranian ministerial spokesman Ismail Baqai said that Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi will travel to Norway on Wednesday and Thursday. The Iranian spokesman announced on Monday that his country would soon present its proposal for a possible nuclear agreement. Araghchi asserted last week that Washington's proposal contained ambiguities. Iran and U.S. seek to replace 2015 landmark pact between Tehran and world powers. International human rights organizations warn of increasing food crisis among Palestinian people due to the Israeli siege. Local media reported that the Israeli regime had besieged the Gaza Strip once again. As a result of such blockade, the entry of basic supplies have been reduced in alarming figures so that Gazans suffer from famine daily. In addition to the siege, the Netanyahu administration has showed lack of commitment and delays on the permits to enter the enclave. Likewise, international organizations, including the United Nations, urged that humanitarian trucks needed safer and more reliable transit routes due to the insecurity and lawlessness experienced by the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip. And the foreign ministers of Australia, Canada, New Zealand, Norway and the United Kingdom announced sanctions and other measures against Israeli government ministers after they incited violence against Palestinians. According to David Lammy, the head of British diplomacy, Ministers Itamar Ben-Gvir and Bezalel Smotrich, who hold the security and finance portfolios in Benjamin Netanyahu's executive, have incited extremist violence and serious abuses of Palestinian human rights. These sanctions mean that Ben-Gvir and Smotrich will be subject to asset freezes and travel bans with immediate effect. The move is intended to step up the international response to violence against Palestinian communities in the occupied West Bank. And Greta Thunberg, one of the activists who left on the humanitarian ship Matlin for Gaza, returned to Sweden after being deported from Israel. Thunberg arrived in Stockholm on Tuesday night, where she was greeted by at least 30 supporters waving Palestinian flags as well as a large media presence. The Swedish activist accused the Israeli regime of kidnapping her and the other crew members and of committing genocide against the Palestinian population of Gaza. Thunberg was one of 4 crew members to accept the conditions of deportation. The remaining 8 were brought before a court to have the custody orders issued against them reviewed.
We are currently witnessing a genocide and a systematic starvation of over 2 million people. We must act, we must demand that our government acts, and we must act ourselves when our complicit governments do not step up. What I'm most afraid of is that people are silent during an ongoing genocide.
And in Kenya, citizens take to the streets of Nairobi to protest over the death of a blogger in police custody. The autopsy performed on 31-year-old Albert Ojwang found that he died after being beaten and assaulted. A crowd gathered to demand the resignation of Nairobi Police Deputy Inspector General Eliud Kipoech Lagat, as forensic doctors said it was unlikely that Ojwang committed suicide while in police custody, contradicting the initial police report. The professor and blogger had been arrested last Saturday for allegedly posting false information on social media X. And now we have a short break coming up. First, remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English. We will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We're going to be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. In Argentina, following the political proscription of former President Cristina Fernandez, demonstrations were held in Córdoba, Rosario, Bariloche, Mendoza, Santa Fe, Mar del Plata, and Quilmes, among other cities. In addition, several unions set up roadblocks on the Pan American Highway and on several sections of the La Plata-Buenos Aires Highway. Meanwhile, students held significant assemblies at universities and approved the occupation of faculties and street blockades. On Tuesday, Argentina's Supreme Court upheld the prison sentence to the 2-time president as civil and political forces denounced this as a form of political persecution, jailing Milei's most relevant opponent months ahead of the country's legislative elections. And almost 3 months after more than 250 Venezuelan migrants were held in a prison for terrorists in El Salvador, a cloak of silence surrounds the case. Neither their lawyers nor their families have had access to them. From El Salvador, our correspondent Roberto Gopresa with the updates.
Jaime Ortega leads the team of lawyers hired by the government of Venezuela to represent more than 250 migrants from that country, held in the terrorist confinement center Sigot. Less than a week before 3 months of their illegal confinement, the lawyers have not had any contact.
Podemos hablar de una retardación de justicia. ¿Por qué? Porque perfectamente la institución...
We can speak of a delay of justice. Of a delay of justice? Why? Because perfectly well, the institution of habeas corpus generates and requires an immediate dynamic. It requires expeditious acts. Why? Because we are dealing with the personal freedom of a human being. In this case, the personal freedom of 252 Venezuelan citizens. They have been totally isolated for almost 3 months. This lawyer is clear that this is a political case, which has nothing to do with a violation of U.S. migration laws.
La falta de que no existe ninguna ley
The fact that there is no law for them to be able to resolve them in a prompt manner means that they are still in a legal limbo. Therefore, they are forgotten by a system that does not recognize them, as in El Salvador they are not processed, but also in a system that rejects them on behalf of U.S. immigration. Therefore, if this were a legal issue, it would have been resolved by now, but it's totally a political issue.
Social organizations have been vigilant and have repeatedly requested the government to release them and respect their rights.
Hay que recordar de que no existe ninguna base legal y jurídica por parte de la legislación salvadoreña para retener.
It must be remembered that there is no legal and juridical basis in Salvadoran legislation to hold Venezuelan citizens who have not been seen or heard in court to be imprisoned in Salvadoran jails. Salvadoran jails are for those who have been convicted for crimes in Salvadoran judicial processes.
In view of the silence of the state and the passivity of the justice institutions, the lawyers see the ruling of a federal judge in Maryland, which ordered the U.S. government to design a mechanism for Venezuelans to have the right to a hearing within a period of time that expires this Wednesday, as a way out.
Nosotros estamos ya prestos, tenemos todo y cada uno de los escritos.
We are ready. We have each and every one of the documents already prepared so that when the government of the United States and El Salvador coordinate the situation and call us to be ready to meet them, to let them know their rights both in El Salvador and the United States. And for this reason, we also have a strategic alliance with U.S. lawyers who are experts in immigration issues.
In view of the uncertainty, relatives of two migrants detained at Sigot traveled to this country to try to arrange a visit to the maximum security prison where entry is prohibited.
Roberto Hugo Presa, TeleSUR, El Salvador.
And violence escalates in Ecuador. At least 8 people were killed in less than an hour in different parts of Guayaquil City. Local media reported that in the early hours of Tuesday morning, unknown individuals arrived in a vehicle and fired more than 30 shots at 5 men in the Peca sector of the city. The victims were drivers of motorcycles adapted for passenger transportation. The police also reported that in another area of Guayas, another tricycle driver was murdered and 2 other drivers were killed in the Pascuales district. National police attribute increase in violent killings to seizure of 4 rifles over the weekend. In Ecuador, the 23rd edition of the International Dance Festival Fragmentos de Junio is being held in Guayaquil under the direction of choreographer Jorge Parra. This event that can be enjoyed until June 27th is a space created for choreographers and dance managers of Ecuador. Programming of the festival has activities such as workshops where different dance techniques will be taught. This will be at the University of the Arts, at the Theater Zona Escena, and the Malecon 2000. In addition, as part of the celebrations, the first meeting of programmers will be held to create the Newmont Network, which seeks to promote collaboration in the artistic community. And the Chinese pavilion at the Osaka Expo 2025 presented an exhibition of intangible cultural heritage of Guizhou province. At the event, visitors were treated to an immersive experience with silver jewelry, traditional embroidery, high-quality teas, and the famous Moutai liquor, all highlighting the region's rich cultural heritage. The opening ceremony included dances and songs of the Miao and Don ethnic minorities, as well as showcasing handicraft techniques such as batik, dieng, and silversmithing, recognized as intangible cultural heritage. A highlight was the Moutai Day, where a special commemorative bottle was presented and generated great interest among visitors. Meanwhile, the German city of Berlin celebrated traditional Carnival of Cultures 2025. For 4 days, this celebration of diversity included music, dancing, and colorful installations where hundreds of people paraded in traditional costumes, flashy outfits, and allegorical objects. Almost 70 musical bands also filled the streets of the German capital and took part in a tour with thematic and light shows offering moments of fun and joy for the youngest. The event also organized theatrical performances, workshops, and other fun activities for all ages. Its main objective was to promote cultural diversity in the country. We have a second short break coming up before we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage, and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. A final break, don't go away. Welcome back. The Russian government has confirmed its readiness to hand over the bodies of almost 6,000 Ukrainian servicemen to the Kiev regime. Spokeswoman of the Russian Foreign Ministry, Maria Zakharova, pointed out that Moscow will comply with the agreement established in Istanbul and expects Ukraine to take the same approach. Furthermore, Zakharova pointed out that the Russian Federation delivered 1,212 bodies of Ukrainian soldiers to Kiev on June 7th between the Belarusian and Ukrainian borders. However, the Ukrainian regime refused to receive them. In light of this, the Russian government announced that the Ukrainian regime had finally agreed to accept the bodies of 1,212 Ukrainian soldiers after days of refusal. Moscow has specified that Russia and Ukraine will begin exchanging seriously wounded prisoners from the front lines on Thursday, June 12th. China publicly released the China Global Ocean Fusion Dataset version 1.0 during the 3rd United Nations Ocean Conference, sharing valuable marine data with international community. During the event, the National Marine Data Information Center of China led a side meeting titled Approaching an Intelligent and Inspiring Ocean, New Science-Based Actions for Sustainable Futures, where representatives from China's Ministry of Natural Resources publicly released the dataset to the international community. Researchers team from the National Marine Data Information Center highlighted the significance of the newly released data, which integrates over 40 different data sources, including Chinese independent marine observations.
We released the CGOF 1.0, which encompasses over 40 different data sources from both domestic and international origins, incorporating China's autonomous marine observations. The dataset spans a time period of up to 60 years and has a spatial resolution of 10 kilometers. It integrates advanced AI technology, and its accuracy has been improved compared to the quality of some mainstream foreign datasets.
More extreme weather events are coming from the ocean, more biodiversity collapse, many changes that are hazards for coastal communities. And to prepare better, to predict better, we need data, and that data needs to be shared to be for the benefit for humankind. And China is a leader in ocean policy and ocean observation, but we all need to scale up going forward because the ocean is changing fast.
I believe that establishing a unified global database is very important, incorporating temperature and salinity data from the last 40 years. The data released by China represents highly valuable information that helps us analyze and understand relevant changes from both global and local perspectives.
And an international training program on AI-powered early warning systems opened on Monday in Shanghai. The 5-day program, centering on the application of AI in early warnings for extreme weather events, brings together 22 participants from 21 countries and regions, including Jordan, Chad, and Mauritius.
Our new technology is very less for this kind of training. It's very helpful for our development. Actually, we feel that this is a good opportunity for our develop our early warning system.
I expected after finish this workshop, all this country will working together and make more to plans to the how mitigation with the climate change.
And on Wednesday, European Copernicus Service reported that last May was the second warmest on record globally, indicating that the spring was exceptionally dry for Northern Europe. Through a press release, Copernicus detailed that this data breaks a period that extended 21 months with a global temperature higher than 1.5 degrees Celsius above the pre-industrial level. Carlo Bontempo, director of the European program, mentioned a short break for the planet when referring to the progression of atmospheric temperatures in May this year. Bontempo also noted that the 1.5 degrees Celsius limit is expected to be exceeded in the near future due to the continued warming of the climate system. At least we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. So join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.